Hello and welcome to episode 13 of series 3 of the Engaging Internal Comms podcast. This is the show for employee engagers and internal communicators who like to keep up to date with all that is new in our profession. My name's Craig Smith from the Big Picture People. For those of you who listened to our last episode, you will have recalled it was our second anniversary show. So we're entering now into our third year of the Engaging Internal Comms podcast. As we do that, I'm going to look forward to the next two episodes that we're going to be bringing you. So on the 19th of July, I'm putting out an interview with Leslie Allman from Allman Communication. Leslie has got a great model, the ABCDE of internal communications, really nice way of remembering all the things that we need to be focusing on as an internal communicator, and some really good ideas to share along with the acronym that Leslie uses in her book that she's written as well, which Leslie will be talking about on the show. And then after that, on the 2nd of August, I've got an interview with Stephanie Briggs from Ivanti, and Stephanie's going to be telling us all about the comms and engagement challenges we have during mergers and acquisitions. I know a lot of organizations have been and may be going through some sort of transformation brought about by either a merger or an acquisition. So Stephanie's going to be sharing with us some really interesting thoughts and experiences that she's had based on her experience. And she came into an organization that was undergoing a lot of change as well. So lots of really interesting stuff there about change that you'll be able to pick up. Now, this week, in fact, today, this episode goes out the 5th of July. I'm going to be at the Institute of Internal Communications Festival, which is a conference in the UK. Now, what I'm planning to do, hopefully this will pan out, is to do a few quick interviews. I'm going to grab a few conversations with professionals from internal communications, in the internal communications industry, and I'm going to get some sound bites there for the show. Now, whether it'll go out on the next show on the 19th of July or the one after that, but I'm planning to do a kind of little composite of brief conversations, asking people what they're working on at the moment, sharing their insights, and also the responses for them, how they're finding the conference. Probably one of the first big internal communications conferences we've had since the pandemic restrictions were lifted. I don't want to tempt fate by saying the end of the pandemic, but I will include those in the show. So hopefully a good mosaic of voices there that you'll be hearing, and lots of different people, and hopefully I'm looking forward to hopefully catching up with some of our previous interviewees on the show as well, and having a quick chat with them again to put into the episode. So just a couple of things just before we go into today's interview. We're constantly trying to grow the show, getting more people listening to it, more people aware of it. So if you do find any of our episodes helpful, hopefully you find them, all of them are helpful, but any particularly helpful, please share them with people in your network. We definitely want as many people listening to the show as possible, and we're very happy if you can do that. And also, if you could leave us a review, if you could go to your platform that you listen to your podcasts on, whether that's iTunes or whatever, and leave a review for us. Give us some quantitative feedback. Give us some stars, and as many as possible would be brilliant. But also any feedback that you'd like to give us about the show, how useful you're finding it, any particular bits that you found particularly helpful, that would be absolutely fantastic, and it just helps us to build the show, build the credibility of the show, and attract more fantastic guests for you to be able to listen to. And on that note, let's go to this episode's interview. When it comes to finding guests for the show, we're always looking for people who are relevant to our field. We do a lot of research into people's backgrounds when we're looking for people who are working in internal communications and in employee engagement, be that as internal managers or directors or senior leaders within an organization, or whether they're consultants with new ideas and concepts that we think will bring value to our audience. It's always interesting interesting, though, when we find someone who has a tangential interest or an area of interest which is relevant to our field, but one that we wouldn't normally cover. And today's guest is exactly that. I came across him through an outreach that he made to me. He knew that as my company, the Big Picture People, that we create corporate games. We create games for organizations, not commercial games, but we create games that are learning games, communication games that we provide to our clients to help them to facilitate conversations basically around lots of different topics, whether it's health and safety, whether it's about company values, vision, strategy, all of those different types of areas. And he reached out to me because he's someone who is interested in board games. It's his passion. And when I got into a conversation with him, what I found out what he was doing was not only was he interested in playing board games, he was actually bringing them into the workplace to create culture change. He didn't call it that. It wasn't his definition of what he was doing. He was just doing something he enjoyed, and he'd recognized that it was having a cohesive effect on his colleagues and on his workmates. And I was just really interested in that. And when I got into conversation with him, I found out that this has got nothing to do with his day job. He's an engineer. He's not an employee culture ambassador or anything like that. He's just doing this off his own back. And I thought it was a really, really nice story of what we're all striving to do within our organizations, which is to create a group of people, a culture of people within our organizations that are just doing the right thing for the right reasons, and something that they're bringing their own passion and personality to their work, but that is having an impact and a positive impact on their colleagues and the culture of the organization. So that's what today's interview is going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at this idea of games, but also other social interests that we can bring to our work, that bring our whole self to the work that we're doing, but also have a massive benefit and a massive positive impact on our organizations too. My interviewee today is Adam Collins. Adam is pre-construction manager at the UP Companies based in St. Louis, Missouri. Adam is also the host of Eat, Lunch, and Board Game podcast. This is a podcast that tells the story of what started off as playing games with co-workers to pass through a lunch hour, and now has spun out into a lot more. And I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to bring in Adam. Hello, Adam. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Now, I must apologize because of the time difference. I've got you out of bed at 6 a.m. in the morning, your time. So you're sounding amazingly alert for 6 a.m. in the morning. Tell us a little bit about St. Louis, Missouri. It's somewhere I've never been to. I'm familiar with the name, but tell us a little bit about St. Louis, Missouri. Where is it? And I mean, obviously it's in Missouri and it's in the United States, but tell us a little bit about the place.
Yeah, so it's almost the dead middle of the country. It's what they call the gateway to the West, and it's on the mighty Mississippi. We have the Arch right there down on the lake or the riverfront, and it's where Lewis and Clark started their expedition west to view the rest of the country.
Fantastic. So, games. We're going to be talking about games today, and I've set this up a little bit in the preamble to this conversation about why we're talking about games. But tell me a little bit about your relationship with games, and when did you start playing games, and what part do games play in your life outside of work, and we'll go into the conversation about how you're now using them at work as well.
Sure. So I started playing games at a young age. The Milton Bradley, Parker Brothers classics, Clue, Monopoly, that sort of thing. And I played with my parents, my aunts and uncles, grandma, friends, that sort of thing, my siblings especially. And then kind of got away from it after college. Played Monopoly and stuff in college. And then got back into it when my cousin showed me the Settlers of Catan, and that kind of changed. I had no idea that games could do stuff like that, and be such a different type of game. And so Then, while sitting with a coworker one afternoon, we went out to lunch just at a fast food place, and I was playing Catan on my phone, and he goes, "What's that?" And I'm like, "That's it's a board game, and I can bring it in and show you." Surely somebody else in our office knows how to play. So we found a third person because you need three to play Catan, and I sat down and explained it to him, and he's like, "Oh, this game is awesome." And then from there, more people kept showing up to learn the game, or then other people found out we were playing games.
Hmm.
And as it just kind of morphed into playing every day with, what started off as a few people in my division, kind of became we played every day with people from all over the building. And that was important because the building I was in was very siloed, very segmented, very separated, where you didn't really know people outside of your department
Yeah.
unless it was somebody you needed to know.
Yeah.
Like if you had to know this person, then you knew them.
Yeah.
But did you know that person sitting over there? Nope.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it started, like I like to say, board games build bridges. It started building those bridges of communication and started getting rid of the fog that seemed to be there, like the mysterious, ooh, that department's, mysterious. I don't know anybody over there. And, oh, who do I talk to? Oh, I need somebody in this division. I don't know who to talk to over there. To, oh, I know so and so in that division, so I can go over there, and if they can't give me the answer, they can point me to the person who can. And it really started bringing the office together more, and that's what has really shown the benefits of playing games with your coworkers at lunch. Is just you get to meet them, they're not scary anymore, and now you've got a
Mm.
line of communication in that department that you didn't have before.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I'm going to just rewind a little bit there, Adam. So Catan, for the uninitiated, for the people who aren't hardcore game players, what is Catan? Is that like a role playing game, or without going into the
No,
detailed rules?
so it's what would be like a resource management type game.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a settlement style game, kind of like not so much area control as much as resource management. You're trying to build and expand your settlement on this island of
Okay.
Catan,
Okay.
while everybody else is trying to expand their settlement. You've got to trade with each other, and you're just it's a race to 10 points, but you also have to like work together, but not work. You want to work together just enough to benefit you, but not enough to benefit them.
I get you. I get you. Okay. Yeah. I get. I mean. I know. I do. I'm not. I do know. I do play a lot of board games, but not those are more. I kind of Sim City was the sort of video game. I guess was. I'm thinking of in the back of my head in terms of that sort of building communities. Very very primitive version of that. I guess to a certain extent.
Yeah, to an
Yeah.
extent. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got this game. You're bringing it into the office. You kind of met one sort of. It's like the you found one sort of person who's intrigued by this, and then you've suddenly got this thing that has grown, and more and more people getting drawn into it. And as you say, kind of breaking down barriers, getting people interacting with each other without any airs or graces, and really just being able to sort of engage with each other on a very even level. And that's then grown into this this group that you've got now. We'll talk a little bit about it, but this isn't your day job, is it, Adam? You're not, I know that very few organizations have like a kind of senior board game director or anything like that in them.
Well,
And
that's a shame.
it is a shame, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. But this isn't, you're doing this as something that you're just doing because you like it, and it feels the right thing to do. Yeah, this isn't your kind of your as I said at the beginning, you're a pre-construction engineer in an engineering business. This is something you've brought your personal passion into work, and it's actually doing some amazing things. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Yeah, this is not my day job. I wish it was. But so I started a new company a little over a year ago now, and it's like actually three different companies all under one roof. And again, the fog is there. Like, ooh, don't go to that side of the company. We don't know anybody over there. Oh my.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But I'm a social butterfly, so I'm like, well, I want to walk through this fog and see what's over there. And so yeah, we started playing a different game. We've been playing a game called Red Dragon Inn for the last month, which is just a fun little card based game, and it's it's very lighthearted, very fun, but like it's drawing people in, and so I've got people from the different divisions already, and I'm starting to see the benefits already because I needed to know something, but I didn't know who in that division was the person to ask. So I went to the person I play a game with, and I'm like, "Hey, who can answer this question?"
Mm.
And oh yeah, this person. So they take me and walk
Yeah.
me over there and then give me an introduction. Same thing happened on our side. A guy was like, "Hey, I need to be added to this job folder," and I'm like, "Oh, well, go ask so and so." Well, I don't know who that is. Oh, right. Well, come on, I'll show you. So
Yeah.
I knew who she was, so I walked over and said, "Hey, this is her. This is the person that can help you out."
Yeah.
So I find that it brings the office closer together. Kind of brings the walls in, if you will, and
Yeah.
starts creating those bridges and those lines of communication.
So, give me an idea of how many people you have in the office in general, and how many people are engaged in this group that you're kind of forming, or is forming itself by the sounds of it.
Forming itself is definitely the way it's going.
Yeah, yeah,
We've got about 60 people in the office, 70 people.
yeah.
And I've got about 10 people on the email list, and we have anywhere between 3 and as many as 7 at one time that'll show up. So
Okay, okay.
about 10% of the office is on my email list. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like you said, just kind of growing now. And
Yeah, yeah, it's got its own momentum, and so visualizing this, then am I coming into your office and I'm just seeing at lunchtime, I'm seeing this group of people just playing this game in the middle of the office, or have you got
yeah,
a corner? Yeah, you're not in the sort of the canteen area or the recreation area. You're actually in the office, and you're having this animated game playing experience
yeah.
in the yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, we have a cafeteria that a lot of people go and eat at, and we took a table over in the cafeteria, so we're off to the side,
Yeah.
in the cafeteria with everybody else,
Yeah.
and we're playing our game.
Yeah. And have you got anybody who's just, kind of just doesn't get it, who's just sort of, what are those guys up to? I know you're doing it technically you're doing this in your own time, aren't you? So this isn't in work time. You're doing this in lunchtime. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And anybody though still sort of gives you that kind of strange look as if to say, you guys are weird, or yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But then they see that we have a 3D printed trophy that goes to the winner, and all of a sudden they're like, wait a
oh,
minute, I want to win the trophy.
I want a bit of that. I want a bit of
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
So
I want that trophy.
absolutely. So it's amazing what you've said. You've talked about there. It's kind of breaking down barriers. It's getting people out of their silos. It's getting people to, whether or not you've got anything in common with someone else, you've got this experience that you've had, this regular experience, and the fun and competition and camaraderie that comes out of that. What are the things have you seen changing as a result of this process, or as a result of this activity that people are playing in? And you've got this kind of greater connection. What else are some of the, I guess, because games are great because I always use the analogy, it's like a graphic equalizer in terms of, you can have competitiveness, collaboration, you can have points, you can have, racing to the, there's so many different dynamics and elements to games that make them so enthralling. What other elements have you seen carry over into the workplace from this process?
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. I don't really know of any other than just like I said. It's really just people know now that you know Rick knows somebody over in my division.
Yeah.
People know that in my division that I know somebody in another division, and so we're starting to see that the communication lines coming a lot better now. If anything, it's added a lot of little friendly trash talking and
Mm.
meme sending
Yeah.
over the internet, and
Yeah. Yeah.
coming for the trophy today. Well, better bring it because it's my trophy. And so, we have that kind of stuff going on. I like to see it kind of, I'm in the construction industry, so we're already kind of competitive anyway to try to be the best at the right
Mm.
price.
Mm.
So you can see some of that kind of coming through in the gameplay, but I wish it would. I wish we could say, yeah, well, it's the race to $1 million, but it's we haven't got there yet.
No. I think it's always interesting because some of the games that we develop, and our games are different. They're not intended to be commercial games in that you wouldn't expect people to go into a store and buy them as a commercial game. They are corporate games, but I think some of the elements of like I've said about collaboration versus competition, we've used that metaphor where we've got people into thinking this is a competitive situation when actually we can both win if we can compete, collaborate with each other, which sounds a bit cheesy, but actually can be a really good way of reinforcing, the underlying premise, which is you often get in teams. It is our team needs to be better than the other team across the corridor, and we need to sort of show ourselves as being the most smart or the most agile or whatever. And actually, you can use games to really explore that in a way that people trying to not drop their defenses, but don't realize actually what I'm doing here is actually mirroring a lot of the stuff that happens in the office, and I don't even realize it. And you can get some interesting reflections on that sort of thing. And so, yeah, it was just to see whether any of the games that you play actually you've kind of sort of recognized any kind of behaviors, desirable or otherwise, that people tend to demonstrate in that sort of gameplay situation.
I would say not yet. But it'll probably, maybe at the last company I was at we had a game group going for 5 years, and you would see, a little bit of that. Like,
Yeah.
we had it was a lot bigger office, about 250 people.
Yeah.
And again, though, we had 25, so we had about 10%, which seems like the going number now that I think about it. But I worked hand in hand with the social committee and stuff like that, and we did a lot of games like you're saying, like who can raise the most of this, and who can bring in the most canned goods, and who can, based on teams and stuff like that. We definitely saw a lot of that.
Yeah. So what are your what are your sort of leaders thinking about this? What do when you mentioned that you were playing a game, when we were talking beforehand, and some of your leaders have sort of caught you playing it or seen you playing these games. What are they saying about it? Do they recognize that this is a really kind of really organic and really good process that's just happening, and are they supportive, or how does that work?
Yeah, so for me, it's been at the new company I've had, there's like, we call them the big three, the top three guys, and two of them know that we play, and they are supportive of it. The third, I mean, I'm sure he knows. It's hard to not know that we're out there playing, but yeah, they are supportive. They kind of stop by, say who's winning, what's who's going to win today, and that kind of thing, and show their support of it. And I am working with, again, like the social committee, to try to do like a board game night after work one night in the future. But the management there, they've been really good about it. We only play once a week, so they kind of understand, that 1 hour once a week is kind of like we're all trying to win the trophy, and they kind of let it slide, I guess. They're like, oh yeah, well no, this is their game day, so we'll let them play. So
yeah, I mean, I'd like to think, I find someone like you working in my organization, and it was an organization of your size. I'd like to sort of really, without, kind of not embarrassing you, or kind of like, putting you on a pedestal. That's never a good thing to put people. I mean, I do think what you're doing here is fantastic, because it's like, for me, having people in your team or in your organization who are doing things which is creating social cohesion, that's doing all of the things you talked about earlier about breaking down barriers and creating kind of connections that wouldn't otherwise be there. For me, is like, it's worth 100 employee of the month sort of certificates. So, I think it's interesting. And I know you're not doing it for that reason. You're doing it because you love playing games, and you're just a kind of like you say, you're a social butterfly. But I think it's, for me that you get all of these organizations that are sort of how do we find a way to celebrate our values and all that sort of thing? Well, you're kind of, I don't know what your organizational values are and how this links to them, but for me, you're doing something which is amazing. And I think, I just think you should be getting the credit for that as well, which you may be, I don't know. Yeah. No, I think it's fantastic. So, I mean, if someone's, I mean, and it doesn't, I guess it's always tricky with these sorts of things to say, well, how could you do it in your organization? And then because they haven't got an Adam and they haven't got the kind of culture that you've got, and they maybe haven't got the kind of critical mass of people who are interested in this sort of thing, and it might not be board games, but if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, I really like that, how could we start doing this in our organization without kind of overly managing it and making it into some sort of corporate messy bureaucracy that we have to get approval and sign off to do? What any thoughts on that, Adam? Because you've kind of just done this really organically and it's just happened, and I guess when you try and do things deliberately, they're happening organically elsewhere. That can sometimes lead to some unintended consequences. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so when we started doing it at both my companies, we started kind of playing in the conference room, kind of out of the way, to kind of get people comfortable with it, like getting comfortable playing a game again. Because a lot of times these people, they haven't played games in a long time, and they have no idea, like I said, like what games have morphed into. So we started off small and in a conference room out of sight, so that we're not disturbing anybody. It's kind of a safe area, if you will, like a safe place to just kind of learn to play again, right? And then as we got bigger, we outgrew the little conference room, and it was like, okay, so let's go play in the cafeteria then. And so, that's how we went about it. And then, if you want to play games at lunch, I know a podcast you can listen to that has a bunch of.
I'm going to mention that. I'm going to mention that at the end. Don't worry. We're going to get to that.
But I mean, especially if you want to go down the path I did, I would definitely look at starting off with some simpler games, like kind of just, like Red Dragon Inn is surprisingly, it's a little bit more complicated than a normal game, but it's also very simple once you learn it. But, stick with games that kind of have a fundamental mechanic that's familiar with people. So like I always like to say, King of Tokyo is one of the best entry-level games to this, because it's just Yahtzee, and a lot of people know Yahtzee. So it's just kind of like Yahtzee, only you are a kaiju monster instead of, trying to get all sixes. You're trying to get, instead of trying to score Yahtzee, you're trying to get a bunch of claws to smack everybody else,
Okay.
But I start off simple, work your way up. That's, if you have a lot of people play cards, there are a lot of card games out there that don't use a standard bicycle Hoyle deck of 52 cards. There's a lot of games out there that are card based that people don't tend to be scared of cards.
Yeah.
Because, and then the other thing is with board games these days, they have a lot of cooperative games. Like you were saying earlier about cooperative versus competitive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cooperative games out there. So you can bring people together to play a cooperative game, and you're all working together to try to beat the game. Not to be too on the nose, but there is a great game called Pandemic by Matt Leacock. And that's a good cooperative game, and that you're all working together to try to beat the game. So
yeah, and I agree. I think, and I think there are so many different game mechanics within games, because one of the things that when we're working with clients and they ask us to develop, kind of gamify a thing that, whether it's our company's processes or procedures or something more nebulous, one of the things we always do is to try and keep it simple, because I think there's a danger that and again, I know what you're doing is you're playing the games for the game's sake, and any consequences that come for that are kind of like a benefit. Whereas what we're trying to do is we're trying to derive the benefit from playing the game. And I think in those situations, what we found is that it's really important not to overcomplicate. It's really easy to try and create some sort of overly elaborate mechanic with complicated rules that people spend all of their time trying to work out what the rules are rather than actually experiencing the game. And that I definitely vouch for you on that in terms of how you can break things up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly it.
And I think the other thing I was going to ask you actually, you because you've obviously you mentioned the game pandemic. We've also all been through a pandemic. What happened to this kind of, because did this community start before the pandemic, or was this something, because it sounds like you've been doing this for a while, yeah?
Oh yeah. So the office that I was at when the pandemic started, we had just started working on an RPG role playing game campaign, and we took it online.
Yeah.
And the online, the online stuff has been great since.
Yeah.
And I really think the pandemic helped push a lot of that to it. And then, but really, what it also allowed me to do, a lot of my, which sounds weird, a lot of my best friends don't live in the St. Louis area, and so we were able to play over Zoom.
Right.
And we would hook up our cameras, and we would play these roll and write games, which are like Yahtzee, where you roll and then you write down the results of the dice some way or another. And then, but we were playing these ones that everybody was involved in every round and all that. And so the three of us would log onto a Zoom together, and for half an hour we would play this real quick short roll and write and we joked about how we played and hung out more over the pandemic virtually than we hung out in a normal year together.
Yeah. No, that's interesting, because we had a similar experience at the beginning of the pandemic. We were developing a physical kind of board game solution for one of our clients, and we came and the pandemic struck, and we'd done a lot of the work, and we had this kind of physical thing that we were trying to work out how the hell are we going to get this to work now, because it'd be shame just to not try and find a way around it. So we did a pilot for them, and I did very similar to what you did. We kind of printed the board game, and we hovered a webcam above it, and everybody dialed in, and we played a board game with them. I was rolling the dice, moving them around, then turning the cards over, and then holding it up to the camera. And then actually from that, what spawned was a kind of a way of using that platform and using that actually with a proper interface where we can have a board game environment where one person can manipulate, roll the dice, move things around in a digital kind of format, and we could get people dialing in via a Zoom call, and it worked really well. And I was amazed, because everybody, when we talk about this, we say, oh, so they say it's like an e-game where I just play against myself, and I've got avatars, a bit like when you play Monopoly on the iPad and things like that. No, it wasn't. It was still a social experience, but we were doing it through Zoom, and it was a really interesting. It was challenging, but it was really interesting. So yeah, I can completely relate to that.
We were so back to that real quick. I also run a board game publishing company, and we were right in the middle of play testing our next game.
Yeah,
and we actually finished the play testing of some of the last bit of rules and expansions. Same way, we hung a cell phone up in the dining room table light fixture. Everybody logged into the Zoom, and so our game was spatial oriented. It's a tile laying game.
Yeah.
So we actually took a Post-it note, wrote in for north, and put it on the table.
Yeah.
That way you could tell me north, east, south, and west where you wanted to place that tile.
Yeah.
To make it faster, no, go west, no, further west. Okay, now go up north. Okay, right there. Now rotate it. All right, and then every day the camera in the light fixture would orientate itself differently. So we had to put a north down so we knew which way which way Game North was that day.
Yeah, yeah. Because our game, the game we were trialing was, and then we eventually ended up using in the digital was a team based thing. So there were two teams. So what we got them to do there, which actually turned out, I'd originally had the idea that we would send them like a party hat, two different colored party hats, and they'd have to wear a party hat just to sort of show which team they were in. And then actually somebody said, why don't you just change the color of the background? So what we did is we got them to, so it was great. You had this little wall of faces and you could see the blue team and the red team, and it worked really well like that. So it's amazing, necessity is the mother of invention. That's the right way, isn't it? Yeah. So
Yeah.
and actually it made it a kind of fun part of the process, because people would choose, a kind of find a red background and they would find palm trees or a desert, and then some people would find like kind of like the sea for the blue team, and it wasn't just a color, it was really creative as well. So that was cool as well. So look, Adam, that's been really amazing, really fascinating. As I've kind of said in the preamble to the interview that I've already recorded on my own, it was just like really amazing sort of story. I love stories, and I love stories about people who've just done things, and because they're passionate about them, and it's actually leading to some really interesting consequences that if organizations tried to design them themselves, they would probably kind of foul up and overcomplicate and then just give up on. And you've just got this thing that's happened because you've got a bunch of people who are passionate about this, and it's creating, like you said at the beginning, it's sort of breaking down barriers, and it's creating kind of cohesion and connectivity that just wouldn't be there. And I think it's a really nice story. So anything to add, any other final points before we talk about I'm going to give you a chance to tell us all about your own podcast as well, so don't worry about that. So anything to add to the general content of the conversation though, Adam?
No, I don't think so. Other than this group has been kind of an interesting one at my new company, because it's a lot of people who have kids, so they're interested in learning about games that they can play with their kids. Both, so I have two young ones, and so does a couple of my coworkers. But then one of my coworkers, she's older, and her children are obviously older, and she said, "Well, how do I get my I want to play a game with my kids. It's, they're 19, 20." And so it's been interesting to try to help them find games to play with their kids. And it's been a real fun experience.
Yeah. No, I know, and again, I'm not want to keep going about the pandemic, but I know during lockdown when we were caged up with my my two sort of my early 20-year-old and a late teen, we found a lot of solace in the routine of every night having a game, after we'd eaten our dinner, and we ended up defaulting to one game which we just played over and over again, which was because you'll want to know, which was Quirkle. Do you know Quirkle?
Oh yeah, Quirkle's a blast.
Yeah, really got heavily into Quirkle and tactics with Quirkle, because I love games where there's a tactical element to it as well, and which is all the best games.
There certainly is in Quirkle.
Oh yeah, we've that's our kind of go-to whenever they're back from college. We get Quirkle out after tea, and we kind of remember the days of like playing this every night. And God, did we do that for like 6 months continuously, or was it 3 months, or was it a year? We can't remember, but yeah,
I think it's all the same.
Exactly. Well, look, Adam, I am going to give you a chance now to tell us all about your podcast and where people can find out more about that, and I'll stick it into the show notes as well. So over to you.
Sure, yeah. My podcast is Eat Lunch and Board Game. It's easy to find at eatlunchandboardgame.com. It's on Spotify and Apple and all that stuff as well. But eatlunchandboardgame.com. It's on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/eatlunchandboardgame, where I need to get back on it. But I was posting pictures of the games we were playing at lunch and any fun anecdotes about what happened in that day's game. But yeah, that's,
okay.
Then I've got my own board game company, which is beardedboardgames.com. We have one game currently out right now. We're trying to get the second one out there, but we've got Fences, which is the game we developed while working. So it was designed specifically to be played over a lunch hour.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Beardedboardgames.com. I'll put that into the show notes, and I'm going to find your Facebook page, and I'm going to join that as well straight afterwards as well. I'll also put a link into your LinkedIn profile if from a professional perspective, and as well if anyone wants to reach out to you there. But really, really enjoyed that, Adam, and I love these kind of conversations where it's just it's a tangential thing from what we normally talk about, but actually it probably embodies more about what I think we're trying to do, and in terms of developing and building cultures and helping people feel sense of belonging in our organizations. I think sort of stuff like this is just so neat, and I really like it. So well done, Adam, and really lovely to speak to you. And
no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And you've got a early start to the day now. You're kind of all woken up and fresh eye.
Yeah, I have a job site meeting at 7:30, and they're like, "Oh, it's so early." And I'm like, "Ha, joke's on you. I'm already awake."
Yeah, exactly. You're in the game. So yeah, fantastic. All right, Adam, you take care, my friend, and thank you very much. I really enjoyed that, and I'll look forward to catching up with you soon. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Engaging Internal Comms podcast. If you've got any ideas for episodes you'd like us to cover in future, you can email us at info@thebigpicturepeople.co.uk, or you can use the feedback form at engagingic.com. If you're not already subscribed to the show via your podcast platform, please do so. And if you could leave a review for us, that would be absolutely fantastic. We have links to other episodes at engagingic.com. All of our previous episodes are available there. And if you're interested in our visual communication services, our big pictures, our learning maps, our explainer videos, and also our live graphic recording, please get in touch with us again at info@thebigpicturepeople.co.uk. Thank you.